Senator Tim Scott, others just straight up lying about Trump's record with HBCUs. If you listen to them, I mean, they were the absolute savior, the Jesus Christ of blowing wind into the Lazarus, these dead HBCUs. This is Trump literally lying and folks falling for it.
It should be 100% of the black people should vote for Trump, because I did more for black people than any president other than Abraham Lincoln. It's true. It's true. I did more than any president other than Abraham Lincoln. Think of it. Criminal justice reform. I took care of the black colleges and universities. They would come up to Washington. After 3 years, they said, "Why do you guys keep coming back?" One of them, I got friendly with some of them, really good people. They said, "Every year we come back looking for money." They do a great job. Black colleges and universities, they have very little money. And then you look at Harvard and these maniacs, and they have billions and billions of dollars. Very unfair. We're going to have to look into that whole situation. We're going to have to. And Elise did a very good job when she destroyed that person, the big plagiarizer from Harvard. I think did she plagiarize every document she ever wrote? I think so. The only thing she had going for her was nice glasses, if you like that look. No, Elise did a fantastic job. We all know that. She was amazing, and it really revealed what they were all about. But I took care of the black colleges, universities, opportunity zones.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to go reverse order. Opportunity zones. Straight line. There is absolutely no data that exists that shows opportunity zones greatly benefited African Americans. In fact, one of the Baltimore pastors who stood with Donald Trump when it was announced came on this show 6 months later and blasted them, saying it hasn't been working. Now, Senator Tim Scott, he's been running around touting opportunity zones as well. No data, no numbers, no economic numbers, no jobs, no nothing, just them saying, oh, we did a great job. Then you hear him talk about criminal justice reform. Let me also remind y'all, that was led by Democrats in the House. They control the House. When it went to the Senate, it was Democrats, Dick Durbin, Kamala Harris, Senators Dick Durbin, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Republican Chuck Grassley, who chaired the Senate Judiciary Committee, who said, this bill ain't good enough. Then the bill got toughened. Then it went to Trump's desk for signature. But he sits here and claims, oh, these presidents, they come here begging and they're going to keep begging. And I made HBCU funding permanent. That's what he says. The likes of Senator Tim Scott and others, they have repeated that lie. And for people who don't read, who are simply not engaged, they don't understand that information. Well, one of the folks who has been president of a couple of HBCUs actually was in D.C. and in an Oval Office. So, of all people, he would probably have a vested interest in whether or not what Trump said was true or false. Joining me right now is Dr. Walter Kimbrough. Of course, he was president at Dillard. He was also president in Arkansas there as well. Philander, you've done work at Morehouse, did I miss any other HBCUs?
Albany State.
Albany State. All right, so let's just say you got your HBCU credentials.
Yep.
All right, now you have been tweeting this stuff, you've been reporting this stuff, and it grates on you every time you hear this man say what he says about HBCUs.
Yep. It just, I mean, being an educator, you really want to focus on the truth and people understanding. And because Trump, and I think Greg Carr talked about it last week, his superpower, we got to give him credit. He just lies and there's no retribution and he just says it over and over again so people feel like that's the right thing. They have no idea. I don't even think he understands how the federal budget works because of the way he talks about how I did X, Y, and Z. And so it's really, you know, an opportunity for us to explain how federal funding for HBCUs works, and who has really done the work to provide funding for HBCU. So that's why I keep pushing back to say, no, this is an opportunity to tell what we need, and then to keep pushing for additional funding, because the power doesn't necessarily reside with the president. It's going to be through Congress, and that's where a lot of the movement has happened.
So let's deal with this first. They keep saying, oh, that was this program. And it's like, no, we guaranteed funding. And when people hear that, they think, oh, there are billions of dollars that are now guaranteed for HBCUs because the benevolent benefactor, Daddy Trump, actually made it possible. It's a program. Explain to people this program.
So it's one program that was started by George W. Bush in the 2008 budget. It was supposed to be a 2-year program to add $85 million to HBCUs, about $250 million when you add Hispanic serving institutions and other minority serving institutions.
$85 million for HBCUs, about $250 million for Hispanic serving institutions.
Everybody together. That includes $85 million.
Now, first of all, for people who don't know, how many HBCUs are there?
So we're talking about 101, 102 HBCUs.
Okay, so 85 million, 101. Now we're talking about Hispanic serving institutions. Again, for all the silly Negroes out there who I got to deal with on this one, see, there they go, Hispanics get more than us. Explain what compromises at HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution.
So the only thing you have to do to be a Hispanic serving institution is 25% of your student body is Hispanic. So there are institutions that wake up one morning and say, oh, wow, we're now in HSI. So now they're eligible for that money. So most of these institutions, you could go on the campus and not know it's an HSI because it's still predominantly white. So and there are over 500 institutions that categorize themselves now as HSIs.
Right. So, for instance, my alma mater, Texas A&M, is an HSI. All right. Yep. So people, it just kills me when people go, see, Hispanics are getting more money than us. Not even know what the hell a HSI is.
Right.
Okay. So this program, so it was a 2-year program. Okay, under Bush, then what happened?
Right, so it was going to sunset. When Obama came in, he zeroed it out the budget. Everybody raised hell. President Obama cut the budget. So he was like, oh man, I'm taking an L on this. So let me come out with a new program under this bill called SAFRA. We're gonna take that 85 and the whole 255 million and make it a 10-year program.
Got it.
So when you hear Trump talking about a 10-year program, he got that from Obama. Okay. Obama did it first. He said, okay, I'm gonna get y'all because y'all got me on this. So it's gonna be a 10-year program. So it came to the end of the 10 years. Trump did the same thing and zeroed it out. He had no interest in trying to do anything different with it. Alma Adams came in and said, nope, we're gonna bring this program back. And so she worked with, members of Congress, and I think as a part of the negotiations, I think Lamar Alexander to try to get his
first in the House, you had Representative Alma Adams, Representative Bobby Scott, CBC, and others. It passes the House.
Right.
Then it goes to the Senate. Then Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, frankly, holds it up.
Right.
And all of a sudden, they begin to negotiate. And so they're weighing in on the White House as well. So then the White House is like, yo, Lamar, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
They negotiate that. It passes. It comes to his desk. So, again, so he signs the overall bill. And so he then, as he markets, taking credit saying, I guaranteed funding to HBCUs. They don't have to come back to Congress asking for any more money because I hooked them up.
Right. And that's wrong because it's still the one program, $85 million. Within the total federal budget, HBCUs get about $1.5 billion. So this isn't the largest of the programs that's existed out there. So a lot of people say, well, they got money. And that's dangerous too, because people say, well, they don't need any more money because they've been funded permanently. And that's not the deal. It's just one. So it represents less than 7% of all federal HBCU money, because we get money from Department of Agriculture, from Department of Defense, Department of Interior, National Science Foundation. That's just part of it.
Right.
So that's why you have to push back to let people know that was only part of it. And so he does. And another thing I tell people, Trump never mentions this funding until after it was signed. I always dare people, find where he made a statement about it to say, we're going to do this. Obama said something about the 10 years before it was passed. Trump never mentioned it. I don't think he knew, honestly.
No, he didn't
I don't think he knew.
Hell no, he didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't know. In the end, he was like, oh, This can be one of my 4 black talking points. Low unemployment, like you said, opportunity zones, criminal justice, and HBCUs. Those are his 4 points. And if you listen, he says those 4 every time, no explanation.
Right.
That's it.
And there's never a dollar figure attached.
No.
Same with Senator Tim Scott. Senator Tim Scott has gone on Fox News. He's gone on CBS numerous times touting, how great, benevolent benefactor Daddy Trump has been to black people in HBCUs.
Right. That's part of the problem that and what I try to tell people too, because people will say, well, do HBCUs get more money after Trump becomes president overall in the budget? The answer is yes. There's been more money because the federal budget in his 4 years increased by 70%. He blew the budget out of the water. During Obama's time, his 8 years only increased 14%. So far in Biden's, it's about 7%. So he spent the most money because he wanted to put all the money in the military.
Right. And
that was a part of the challenge. But the HBCU money didn't grow. And I always tell people, don't just look at the end product because the president presents what's called a skinny budget in February or March. Congress then appropriates the money. Right. Some people say the president proposes, Congress disposes. So I always say, go back and look at what he asked for. And if you look over his 4 years, Trump asked for a negative $117 million for HBCUs.
Whoa.
He proposed $117 million worth of cuts in 4 years.
That's the number.
That's the number.
You never want it. They never talk about it.
They will never talk about. They'll look at the end and say, well, HBCU, their budget went up over $100 million. It did because members of Congress said, nope, we're not paying attention to you. We're going to add more money. In his, I think, one of his statements about what Trump did for HBCUs, they'll say he increased HBCU budget by 14%. That was that first year. He didn't do that. That was Doug Jones and Kamala Harris, because they wrote a letter to their colleagues. They had 12 colleagues sign on and say, y'all gonna spend all this money on defense? We gotta take care of HBCUs.
Hold on. Let's not speed of it. So for all them people who say Senator Kamala Harris, she ain't done enough for black people.
Kamala Harris and Doug Jones, that 14% that if you look on the list that they have from the Trump archives about what he did for HBCUs, and you'll see 14%, that 14% you can tie directly to Kamala Harris and Doug Jones. You can look at the letter. They advocated for that. So she was a big part of that money that HBCUs got, but then Trump took credit for it. His first year, he proposed a flat budget. He wasn't trying to give HBCUs any money. And overall, he tried to cut over $100 million. And I'm not even counting SEOG, work study.
SEOG, what is that?
That's a supplemented educational opportunity grant that a lot of black students use all over, not just HBCUs, but that's an important program. And of course, black students know about work study. He tried to just decimate those programs. And so when he presented particularly his FY20 budget, when he got rid of the $85 million, the Thurgood Marshall Fund wrote a letter saying, man, you're trying to cut everything. And that's people don't want to read that. So they just look at the end and say, oh, he did such a great job. I said, look at his budget, because your budget shows what your priorities are.
Right.
And his budget was always a cut for HBCUs.
And the thing that also jumps out at me, again, as we're walking through this, first of all, let's be real clear. He only been to one HBCU campus.
And he wasn't invited by that school. He wasn't invited by them. It was an outside group that rented some space.
That was this third-party group, supposedly Republicans and Democrats. And what happened was the Republicans with that group really flipped that thing into a Trump victory lap and pissed off a bunch of the Democrats. And most of those people in leadership, they got booted out because of what they did. So he probably couldn't even name Benedict.
Trump couldn't name 3 HBCUs if you told him 4. That's the way I look at it. He has no clue. The way we ended up in that Oval Office, that's Omarosa's fault, because she fed into his ego, just like, man, he's gonna because we weren't supposed to see him. It was the day before the State of the Union. He's supposed to be trying to get himself together. They use that, and so people see that image. I think you talked about this last week. They see the image of the president in the Oval Office. They're like, well, yeah, he must have done something. It was all stagecraft.
And again, but people who don't understand, look, you got HBCU week. Presidents come here. Right. A lot of those meetings are in the old executive office building, and when Biden or Harris may go speak to them. Right. So what they did was they wanted the photo op. So they ushered all these presidents into the Oval Office. Kellyanne Conway with a few dollars in the couch. And so they take this photo and you got all the president smiling, and everybody sitting there happy. And let's just be real clear. You had some happy Negroes in that room.
Absolutely. You did. That's why I tell people, you look at those pictures, there's only like one or two that you can find that you can see me, because I was all the way in the back, and I used the common sense. If the camera can't see you, you can't see the camera, you good. Because I didn't want to, because when they announced we were going in there, I was like, this is bad. This is going to be bad for everybody. And we were walking out and people's phones blowing up, like their officers saying, yeah, people saw you. I said, yeah, I don't want. And the next morning I was on CNN just like, look, that's not why I came. And Omarosa was upset with me, but I was like, nope, I'm distancing myself, because I didn't come here. We came here to talk to DeVos because we know she don't know nothing about education or HBCUs.
Betsy DeVos, who was Secretary of Education.
Right. So we were supposed to spend so the time that could have been useful to try to get her on board, we wasted walking over there taking pictures with your boy and then going back. We just wasted the whole time. It was ridiculous.
And what they then did was when people were speaking outside, I remember Johnny Taylor, Linda Baskerville, Michael Lomax, they tried to spin that and saying, oh, see, they were supportive of the president. First of all, they are over organizations that fight for the money. And they're also nonpartisan.
Right.
And so that's their responsibility. But look, president's fighting for the money as well. But you also got to understand when you're being used and when you're being played.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell too. I mean, I always tell people the very next day he signed the executive order, and I think back then you did the show and we talked about it, and you talked to Omarosa about it because they talked about how fast it was. And as I told y'all, I was like, it's almost word for word the same thing as Obama's. So it's like no thought was put into it. You just changed a couple of things. It's the same thing. But that's how they play the game. Trump and his people understand. Most people know nothing about HBCUs, so I'm gonna tell them this is what I did, and his fans say, "Yep, that's what he did."
That's why all those white people were clapping in that rally.
They're just clapping.
So they like, that's great. That's wonderful. But look what he did for the blacks.
Right. But I asked him, it's like, you haven't heard not one HBCU president say any of the things that Trump is saying. Not one. The advocacy groups don't even say that. And there are, like I said, Thurgood Marshall criticized them, and UNCF has criticized them too, to say, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z. All right, we want to see what you're going to do. And he didn't do anything. They were just like, so it was all just for show. But it's a part of his 4-point, this is what I do for black people. Yep.
I told y'all, the lion of Trump, right here, is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. You got South Carolina State and other HBCUs in that particular state. Here he is, straight-ass lying on Fox News. Listen.
Who's the president who brought the most money in for historically black colleges and universities? Donald Trump. Who's the president?
And what you have there is 9 seconds of him lying to a mostly white audience, and they like, oh boy, that's great. We feel great. That's a black face lying to them. We played you one clip earlier. Here's Donald Trump lying again when he spoke to Turning Point.
I funded the colleges and black colleges and universities. Nobody else did that. Nobody else even thought of it. And what we're doing.
All right. So now when that clip went out, Walter, you really got pissed off right there. I mean, you were really upset when you said that, as if he was the first person ever to fund HBCUs.
That was just so crazy to me, because HBCUs have received federal funding since 1965. And then the other lie they tell on top.
This was the graphic that you actually posted right here, y'all. And you said they've been getting money since 1966.
So you got them getting that money. And then the other part of that lie is that, well, he's the first to have a White House initiative. No, Jimmy Carter did that. Jimmy Carter, I got to stand up for Georgia because I'm from Atlanta. Jimmy Carter did it. He had HBCU presidents all there. I think they were in the Rose Garden when he created the whole program. So, but they're clapping. People are just like, he said, I'm the first to ever think about funding these schools. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And that's why people can't think. It's like, okay, so they had money. You say he restored the funding. So obviously somebody thought about funding him before he got there. He just, off the top of his head, just lying. I funded them. I'm the first to do it. Nobody thought about doing it but me. And they're just clapping.
And again, what you have is, which really ticks me off, you have these TV anchors, even some of the black ones,
right,
who don't correct them, don't correct any on the record. They just take it as face value because they don't know what the hell is going on. You also posted this tweet right here. You said Trump zero out the $250 million for HBCUs in the fiscal year 20 budget. You lay it out right here. This the budget. Facts.
That's all. I just tell people, look at the budget. You can look at the consolidated budget that shows you where he zeroed it out and where Congress came back and put the money back in. It's real easy. You see a lot of zeros by the Hispanic servant, by the Native American, all the people of color, all that got zeroed out.
Yeah, go back. Come on, go to the iPad. You see it right there.
It's zeros.
2020 president's budget. 0, 0, 0. That column right there, y'all. Right there. This see right here. 2020 president's budget. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
That's right.
0.
It's the
And
budget.
Last 0. Strengthening predominantly black institutions. HEA 3A section 318. What do you see right there? A 0.
It's the budget. It's there, and
here's the deal. Again, you've been president of 2 institutions. If he did it, you would be saying, this is actually what happened.
right, exactly. And that's what I tell people. When his team says his administration forgave the loans for Hurricane Katrina, I always say, absolutely. I met with DeVos twice. I was president of Dillard. We got our loan forgiven. Yes, he did that. So I'm always a straight shooter. They did that. I give them credit for that. So all this other stuff that was lying. I'm going to be a straight shooter about it. If he was doing all these great things, I would just tell the truth. But that was the only thing. And they don't ever mention that. I'm like, that's the thing that you actually did. And you don't even talk about it.
They don't
talk about it. I'm just like, you can say that. And then you set somebody like me up, be like, yep, he did it. But they don't ever mention the Katrina loans. Never. And that's what he did. He gets credit for that.
Wow. Let's go to our panel. Let me first start with, let's start with the Tuskegee graduate. Let's go ahead and start with Randy. Randy, go ahead.
I appreciate the work that you've done and showing the real facts. But the problem is that it's a kind of like the world. People will hear the lies that Trump is saying and embrace them. And that's what concerns me. Like, how do we get this truth out, this work that you laid out for us?
Yeah, that's, one of the things that, Greg Carr talked about it last week. We've got to continue to keep talking about the facts. I think that's very important. And we just do it over and over again because people, they aren't understanding it. And we have to hit it from multiple levels and keep doing things like that. Right, exactly. Because that's all he's doing. He's saying the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to keep saying the same thing over again. And there are going to be some people that drank the Kool-Aid, and no matter what Trump says, they're going to do it. But I've even found on social media, there are folks where I can show that table and show them the zeros. And I've had people say, oh, I guess I've been misinformed. So it's probably half and half. There are going to be some that are just idiots, and they're not going to do anything differently. But there are some people who are just like, yeah, I think I better leave this one alone because I really don't know what I'm talking about. So we have to be, like I said, people say he's not message disciplined, but on black people, he has those 4 points. And he mentions them all over again. He can't tell you anything about an opportunity zone. I haven't met anybody who's benefited from an opportunity zone, but he's going to keep saying it.
First of all, you can't even find any data.
Nope.
But before Trump got ousted, I literally reached out to the White House and I said, matter of fact, let me find the email. Because I sent them the email and I said, can y'all provide for me? And again, if they did it, I would have said it.
Yep.
I said, can y'all provide for me any information, any data regarding opportunity zones? And nobody ever got back with me.
Yep. No, and I've looked for things. There's some research that's been done, but it talks about, are they opportunity zones or gentrification zones? And that's the concern, that they're going to go in some of these communities and build them up, and then black folks won't be able to work there or live there. And that's what's going to happen. So I'm ready to see the research on opportunity zones, because some of the things I've seen so far are pretty negative. But he just keeps saying that. People just like, oh, and when you watch him on social media, they'll just say opportunity zones, criminal justice reform, funded HBCUs. They have no idea what any of that means.
And in fact, if you want to understand the lies and how the lies are told, this here is a piece that was done in the Hill newspaper. Look at the date. April 28, 2020. While Congress awards Harvard million, Trump moves to bolster historically black colleges. And so he sits there and he's all smiling, signing the executive order. And in this particular piece here, it's talking about exactly, and so this guy's writing all these different things, and, what's going on and what they're doing. And what you have here, again, blackface Negro, Richard Johnson, director of the Texas Public Policy Foundation's Booker T. Washington Initiative. Okay, I ain't never heard of him. I don't even know who he is. But again, I want y'all to see this article. So he goes in the article, and then talked about the CARES Act, what that included for HBCUs. He graduated in Wiley College. I never forget, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Betsy DeVos, to her credit, I want y'all to understand the lies. He writes, as Newsweek reported, U.S. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos expressed concern that stimulus funds were going to schools with large endowments, and she asked schools that didn't need the money to send it along to schools that did. First of all, ain't no school with a big ass endowment just gonna send the money to some other small school. Stop it. Secretary DeVos gets it, and it is to her credit that she has taken this strong stand on behalf of our HBCUs. They didn't send no damn money to them smaller schools by saying, I know our endowment is $50 billion. Right. We'll go ahead and send y'all this money. And then he goes in here, as mentioned, what drove horrors about face with President Trump's comments at a press conference, blah, 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 blah. Thus, there is reason for optimism that our valued HBCUs will continue to have the resources they need to support the invaluable national service they provide. There's nothing in this whole article that is a substantive fact, a number or whatever, but the headline is all they wanted. Yep. Trump moves to bolster historically black colleges. This is propaganda.
Yep, and it's a straight lie because, like I said, I looked at his budgets for those three largest Department of Education programs. He proposed over $100 million in cuts.
Carol, do this here. I want you to find this dude, this Richard Johnson. Book his ass on the show. I want him to come on the show and defend this article 4 years later.
That's crazy.
Mustafa?
Yeah, well, Doc, thank you for all the work that you have done and continue to do. I think it's interesting that we continue to have this conversation about Donald Trump when we know when he was in office, he lied over 30,000 times. So if somebody lies to you 30,000 times in a 4-year period, I'm not sure how you trust them. My question to you is, we have the Biden administration now. I think the last number I saw was about $15 billion in various programs that are supposed to be going to HBCUs. We have this conversation about Donald Trump and the zeroing out of budgets. Could you share for folks sort of a side-by-side with the two different candidates who are probably going to end up being, one of them will be the next president. What does it look like for HBCUs if one gets in or the other?
Right, that's a good question. So once again, I'll just look at their budgets. Each of them now would have proposed 4 budgets. They haven't gone through the full congressional process for Biden's FY25 budget. So if I look at those same 3 programs, Department of Education specifically for HBCUs, and I look at what each of them proposed in the budget, okay? So I indicated already, Trump proposed over $100 million in cuts for HBCUs for just those 3 programs. Biden in 4 years has proposed $352 million for HBCUs. We've seen nothing like, he's been coming hard saying, I'm really pushing the envelope, and even I think some of the House Democrats, because there's an article saying they cut HBCU funding, $30 billion. Okay, I was like, no. So he was trying to get new money. Right. He was pushing for that.
First of all, let me deal with that, because again, this is what happens when lies are told. Well, that was a Newsweek article, and I was trying to find the cover, and what happened was, again, Negroes immediately believe in white media, sent that damn thing around. I saw folk posting it on their social media, and there were several, I'm talking about black activists, pastors, and others, and there were several people, I hit their ass, I said, take that shit down. Because what they did was they extrapolated when he was campaigning,
Right.
he announced what he wanted to do for HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions. I went and found the actual document.
Yeah.
Then when he gets in, they forget that first massive bill was like a $10 trillion bill.
Right.
Okay. They were like, yeah, we ain't funding that. So it go from 10 to 5 to 2.5. That sucker just start going down. I mean, it was like 10. It was a huge number.
Yeah.
Okay. It started going down. So stuff get cut in the bill. All right. And so then you eventually get the bill. The bill never even got passed. Right. Then it got reworked as well. So they took that and said, oh, well, because here's what in the bill. Oh, he's cutting HBCU funding. No, that was a It was a promise during the campaign. It wasn't actually real money. It wasn't even in the budget.
Right.
That's what they did.
Right. No, that's what they did. People didn't read that. They don't read any of the articles. They looked at the headline, and that was one of the ones I went and broke down. I was like, first of all, you got a girl who just out of college. She went to Maryland. She don't know nothing about black folks in HBCUs.
No.
And she didn't interview no black people for the article.
No. Then
none.
NBC News has some young Latina woman see that article, and I eviscerated her on the show and social media. She sees the article. She does a story. Then she interviews 3 HBCU students, some brother from Alabama,
right.
A&M, Alabama State.
I remember this.
And he's sitting here, we ain't got this, we ain't got that. And I'm like, fool, you can't even see how much money your school actually got in the damn budget, and you complain about that. It was all a farce. And then the root, again, this is what pisses me off about black targeted and even black owned media. When these simple Simons, what they do is rewrite the shit white folks write that was wrong and put a black byline on it, and they go, oh, see, I saw it in the root. I saw it. I'm like, no. I'm like, nobody thought to pick the phone up and call? No. Because they just rewrite the stuff and see the headline and just aggregate the news content, and the lie just keeps jumping. And it went from Newsweek to Associated Press to the root. That lie just kept jumping. Yeah. No, that's what happened. So, Brother Ali, that's the deal. If you put them side by side, Biden has gone hard. He's been pushing Congress. I think people say, well, you didn't keep a promise. He's asked for more money than anybody. And if I started adding it up, he probably asked for more money in his first term than most presidents asked completely in their entirety of their time being president. So he's made the effort. So when they put this out again and again, I ain't got a problem saying it. They were horrible at messaging this. Yes, absolutely. They dropped it on the Thursday. Then on Friday, the DOJ announced the schedule for marijuana. There were like 3 or 4 posts on the Biden Twitter feed and the Harris Twitter feed about marijuana, and only one on this. And we had a brother who used to work at the White House on talking about, well, I'm sure they got it to all the HBCU blogs. I was like, no, they didn't. And so this is the reality. Go back to it. $16 billion. Yep. And let me be clear. Donald Trump's people cannot show you a document like this that comes near that amount. So when they say he funded, when you have old mushmouth Tim's got, he funded more than that, it's a straight ass lie. Yeah. No, it's not a comparison. Like his biggest numbers, Trump, would have been from CARES Act, because one of them was done during his term, but then 2 were done under Biden, and they were bigger. So that's going to be his biggest thing. But once again, he tried to cut. I just keep reminding people, look at all of his budgets, and you look at all those zeros, and you'll see that's the real deal. Hold up, but before I go to, and again, the reason we're doing this segment, y'all, is because I want y'all to share this. I want you to spread it around. I want you to post it. And so we're showing you actual documents. So you just heard Walter say the CARES Act won. This is the spreadsheet that was sent to me from Congressman Jim Clyburn that came from the Department of Education. What y'all will see right here, you had forgiveness, CARES Act 1. Now, CARES Act 1 was under Trump, right? So y'all see right here, this column right here is CARES Act 1. Y'all see it. So we scroll on down, scroll on down, scroll on down. You see all the amounts, and then what you see is under CARES Act 1, when you get to the bottom, it was $352.7 million on the CARES Act 1. Now, if I slide over here, now I see CARES Act 2. Now I want y'all to see, now again, for everybody at home, y'all, this is the actual spreadsheet. In case y'all think I'm lying, here are the schools. Starting with Alabama A&M, going all the way down to all these schools. Then you got Dillard right there, Walter was there, keep going, all the HBCUs, these are all the schools, y'all. You see, there's right there, there's Randall, Tuskegee, there's Texas Southern University, go all the way down, and the bottom, Xavier, you see, source, Department of Education. Now let me go back on up here for the folk out there who can't keep up, okay? Right here, CARES Act 1, side by side, CARES Act 2. So CARES Act 1, Walter, was Trump. CARES Act 2 was Biden.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
I want y'all to see the numbers right here. Based upon right now, y'all, for every school under the CARES Act, this is a side-by-side comparison. Left, CARES Act 1, Trump. CARES Act 2, Biden-Harris. Trump, Pence, Biden-Harris. So far, I don't see a single category where HBCUs got more money, these specific HBCUs got more money under Trump than they did under Biden. And y'all, this is a side by side. You see 13 million for this school under Trump, 26 million for this school under Biden.
And Roland, real quick, the difference between Trump and Biden, you look and see funding pot for Trump for all institutions. This is the money so it's more money, and it's just for HBCUs and MSIs. So
on the CARES Act,
that first one is everybody all in there. So our amount that that's what we got out of that. That was out of the broader pot. So now they pull that pot out a little bit, and you can see the money. So the difference really stands out because they're letting you know this is exactly what we did for your institutions. It's much more money, but they're making that highlight, which is good in that document, to say we separate this out to show you this is what we did specifically.
So right here, 352.7 million under Trump, 575.5 million under Biden. So even if you just take that category, Tim Scott and Donald Trump are lying.
Right.
And then when you go over to the final number, right here, $6.56 billion solely in these programs. And these programs here, and this is the stuff y'all Newsweek didn't bother to go get. You see CAP forgiveness, CARES Act 1, CARES Act 2, CRRSA Act 1, CRRSA Act 2, American Rescue Plan Act 1, American Rescue Plan Act 2, and then the totals. And just so y'all see, so that first, you see right over here, y'all, Alabama A&M, you see that number right there? They got $207 million. The next Alabama school, $232 million. You keep going down. You see how much the schools got. You see what they got. Who is that got 300 and Florida A&M. All y'all rattlers got $307.2 million. You keep going down, 184, 112. But here's also something before I go to Joe. I got to show y'all this here, because here's something else that I think is really important that jumps out that folk don't want to deal with. This right here, y'all. In this graphic right here, they show state appropriations. So go to my iPad. So you see right here, fiscal year 2020, Alabama A&M got $46.7 million from Alabama. Then you got Alabama State got $49 million. I'm just going to use those two, 46 and 49 million. Yet when you go over here and you realize, so total state funding in 2020, Alabama A&M and Alabama State got $47 and $54 million in federal COVID relief funding alone. The schools got $207 million and $232 million. That means in federal funding, federal COVID funding alone, those two Alabama colleges got 4 times as much money from the federal government than Alabama gave them in funding. 4 times as much money. So when you sit, and so we just go down over here. So you take Florida A&M. Florida gave them $136.9 million in funding. Federal COVID money, $307.2 million. That's more than double the state gave them. So for all y'all folks sitting at home, right here shows you the difference between a Trump budget and a Biden budget. This ain't caping, this ain't plantation, this ain't butter and biscuits, all the bullshit terms y'all use. This is hardcore data that shows you apples to apples, oranges to oranges, for some of y'all chitlins to chitlins. So you now understand what the numbers look like when we talk about what a Trump administration looks like and what a Biden administration looks like is right here in the data. Joe.
Hello, Dr. Kimbrough. Thanks for all the work that you're doing. Kind of piggybacking on the other questions, I'd be interested in your thoughts related to strategy should, God forbid, Trump wins, and or regardless of who wins, there's more of a pushback or a pull away as it pertains to funding for Black institutions, because that's theoretically a possibility. And then a question that's maybe not so connected, but it's something that I wonder about quite a bit. The whole idea of philanthropy giving by alums of predominantly Black institutions, of HBCUs. How do we improve that? I mean, often they don't have the endowments that PWIs do. And, you know, there are some economic realities related to that. You first generation, you come from more modest means, you won't have as much money to give. But how do we create and continue to bring along and reinforce that culture to be a part of it? I mean, they'll never do without federal funding, nor should they, because the federal government ought to be helping to secure futures of colleges, et cetera. They should be part of that because it is our tax dollars. But how do you bring that along? I'd be interested in your thoughts, having been at a couple of HBCUs.
You answer that question. I want us to also remember this here, and that is Secretary Cardona and Secretary Vilsack, Education as well as Agriculture, they sent letters to 16 states based upon research that was done by another group that shows that that land grant HBCUs, Florida A&M, Prairie View A&M, North Carolina A&T, and others, were cheated out of $12 billion in funding. Go to my iPad. These 16 governors received letters. Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia. There are HBCU land grant institutions in 18 states that have Delaware and Ohio have equitably funded their respective universities. Okay? Based upon the research, that these schools, now mind you, this is only for a certain period. Yeah. We're not talking, 12 billion historically. No, this is only for
1987.
Yeah, from 1987 to present day?
Yeah, I can't think exactly when they stopped it, but maybe like almost 30 years.
So for about 30-year period, HBCUs cheated out $12 billion. So when they talk about buildings and things along those lines.
Absolutely.
Well, hell, when you've been cheated out of $12 billion, you can't build shit.
Right.
And so part of our deal needs to be black-owned media, but also alumni and just black folks in general, saying to Georgia, you sitting on billions of dollars surplus, when are you going to give Fort Valley State their $1.2 billion? And going down the line. Mm-hmm. This is just land grant money.
Right.
This is not states underfunding them. This is money that the federal government sent to the states that they diverted away from the HBCUs to the white schools.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of the credit they should get, even as this administration, is to just put it out there. They saw it and said, look, y'all need to be held accountable. Now, of course, most of these Southern governors are pushing back. Well, we can do, but I give them some credit for even making this a part of our consciousness to say, we need to keep pushing for this. So I think that's important. Joe, to your points real quick, historically, HBCUs have done well despite who was in the White House. I don't probably agree with Rand Paul a lot, but I do agree with him when he said, when Democrats are in control, Republicans are conservatives. But when Republicans are in control, there are no conservatives. So that's why, Trump tried to cut the budget, but HBCUs ended up getting over $100 million more when he was president, because everybody realized this dude just gonna spend, so we about to get some for our school. So we just take advantage of it. So there has always been good bipartisan support. Probably HBCUs get more bipartisan support than most things do. So I'm not as concerned about that. If they do some things with Department of Ed, that can make things tricky, because I'm more concerned about what they do with, work study and grant programs. So that would be detrimental. So I have a concern about that.
And again, hold on, sit right there. But people don't understand, the reason that's detrimental, because when you talk about most of your HBCUs, they are surviving on the students' financial aid.
Yep.
So when we talk about HBCU funding, research dollars and grants, that's one thing. When we talk about cuts to Pell Grants, that's a cut to HBCUs. Yep. When you talk about cuts to other loan programs, that's a cut to HBCUs. Right. And so when we talk about the impact on cuts, education cuts, they hurt HBCUs disproportionately, because you've got some schools, 90+% of the entire school's operating budget is solely based upon student tuition. That's why when the Obama administration totally screwed up with the Parent Plus loan, when they announced it, that was devastating to HBCUs, because that dropped in like August, and you saw 25, 30, 40% of students not showing up, and that was massive holes in budgets.
Yeah, no, people struggle with that. They rolled it out in a bad way. So I found out, Norman Francis called me. He was like, are you looking at your enrollment? That's how I found out, because he called me. So that was part of the challenge. But you're right. And once again, I tell people, go look at the budgets. Go look at, Trump did work with the institutions to bring back year-round Pell Grant. Go back and look and see what he proposed for Pell Grants. We don't talk about that. And HBCUs are 2/3 Pell Grants for all HBCU students. Nationally, all college students about 35% Pell Grants. So we're double.
So if House Republicans are out here talking about we need to slash Pell Grants, that means they are actually trying to gut HBCUs.
Yep, that's us. So we have to protect that. So which so far Congress has done a good job. Even when Trump was president, tried to cut it, they were able to support it. John, your other point in terms of giving. The Pew Research data says that still African Americans are the most generous people in the United States. And I think sometimes people lament to say, well, why is the percentage of HBCU giving so low? And I think about it differently, because a lot of, black folks, who they're active, with their institution, they're very active in church too. So they give in the church first. I'm a preacher's kid. Right. So that's part of it. So it's not that they aren't giving. So I think we have to continue to get them to try to figure out, how do we support both? Mark Morial talks about a civic tithe, where you tithe to church and you tithe to community organizations. So that's part of it. And then we got to get more of our churches to do some things like Alfred Street does in Virginia, where, they do big HBCU weekend. They do a college fair. They have a HBCU president come speak. They give them, I spoke during COVID, $50,000 for Dillard that was unrestricted. We need everybody doing those kinds of things because black folks are giving, and it might not just be directly to the institution. Some of that is going to churches. So we've got to partner a little bit better. And I know UNCF was trying to do a big faith-based initiative to try to do some of that. So, but we still can do a better job in terms of improving those rates. When I was at Dillard, our alumni giving rate was only 4%, but right before COVID, we got to 23%. So there is some margins that we can move that to, but we've got to have other partnerships.
But also, I want us to also recognize that when we are fighting, when you're fighting on behalf of the Fearless Fund, when you're fighting with the stuff that Randy is doing in terms of battling these companies with DEI, black giving is directly impacted by black earning. And when you have a black college graduate who's earning on average less than a white high school graduate, then black people having more student loan debt than anybody else, right. All of those things has an impact on black giving. The fact of the matter is this here. If black people are able to make more money, then we are able to give. And this is where, right here, where I talk about Project 2025. For anybody who's black understanding, they want to go after, in a huge way, federal bureaucracy. Black people over-index in government jobs. Mm-hmm. That's where you see more black people making high 5- and 6-figure salaries. So when they start yelling government cuts, that means government jobs. That means disproportionately black people. Yeah. So that means it's gonna be less giving. So we have to understand, and I'm all, look, of all HBCUs, I've been to 58 of them. And I've done 19 commencements, I think I did 19 commencements, 19 or 20. And I'm always talking about how we have to give. And my point is this here. If it's going from 4 to 23%, I'm saying I don't care if you can only send $5. Right. Send it.
Send it, yeah.
There's no excuse. So a HBCU should have 100% giving, because even if you just send in $1, you sending $1 is better than you sending nothing. But we also have to understand the battle is to be fighting for higher wages, $15 an hour, all of those things, because that also directly impacts our ability to be able to give to our institutions. And even if we didn't attend one, it allows for us to be able to also be able to write those checks and be philanthropic for that. I'll say this. I believe, Walter, final point here is, and I understand the role that they play. I understand it's very delicate. But this is also where, as far as I'm concerned, UNCF, Thurgood Marshall, NAFIO, and any organization out there that is as an advocate for HBCUs should be putting out their own fact sheets. And again, this is not them taking sides. Right. But they should say, this is what we got under Obama. This is what Trump was proposing and what we got. And this is what we got under Biden-Harris. So the broader HBCU community has the facts coming from those organizations. That also has to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then you can use those numbers, like particularly with what Biden has proposed, you can start to use that as your new floor and build off of that. So you can see how things have done differently to say, but this is what we got before. And now to this guy's coming in and propose a lot of things. So we can build on that. So I agree. It doesn't, like you said, it's just presenting the facts to say this is so people understand how funding works. That's important for them to know. And then to advocate to say, no matter who's elected, locally, federally, we need to make sure that they take our interests as a part of their job. So, but they need the facts. So I agree.
Absolutely. Dr. Walter Kimbrough, Frat, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, folks. Listen, we are out of time. I was going to, of course, show you the video from Warwick Dunn's golf tournament. I will do that tomorrow. I also deal with Caitlin Clark tomorrow as well. So, but I just thought this subject was really critically important. And we're going to be doing more of this because here's the piece. I don't have time for a lot of the BS that I see happening out here. I'm seeing a bunch of crap on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, all those other different places where you have no data, no information, but you got emotion. And we're all about showing you exactly, here are the facts. Now, when you have these fools out there who like, oh man, you caping for so-and-so or whatever, I don't give a damn what y'all say, but the facts are the facts. And the reality is, We are going to advocate for black people. We're going to advocate for policies that have a positive impact on black people. Now, if most of those policies are lining up with Biden-Harris, so be it. The Republicans have all the opportunity in the world to do right. Trump, all his little chat, show me his HBCU proposal. Doesn't exist. Don't bring that little BS platinum plan he put out there, which was atrocious, like his damn tennis shoes. Okay? But we have got to be operating in facts, and we have got to be understanding who is doing what, because then you begin to vote accordingly. I don't agree with anybody on everything. I've been kicking Biden-Harris administration on several issues, but I will say this here, and I'll say thing for Republicans. If you are doing right, we gonna say it. But if you start lying about what you're doing, we gonna cut you as well. Just so you know how we roll.
Somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
Take back the money, take back the money, take back the money, take back the money.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up
And when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.